Mortal Kombat! Alright, so I'm a little older, man, so I remember the Mortal Kombat from 1995. And, you know, Liu Kang does this to Shang Tsung at the end, at the very final fight scene before they get free. So that's my Mortal Kombat. That's my Mortal Kombat. I don't know about the new one that came out. It looks kind of cool. I might have to watch it, but I'm a really originals type of person, so I don't know, man. But anyway, welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. I had the Daniil Dubov versus Wesley coming out of round 6. As you guys know from the Goldmoney Asian Rapids as part of the Champions Chess Tour, Meltwater, all of that good stuff. So it's a pretty nice game. So for all of my people from the Philippines, as always, mabuhay, kamusta na? Maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking video. Masaya king makita king. Masaya akong makita king. Appreciate you guys very much for coming by. And it's not even lunchtime yet. So almost tayo. And lunch was mag lunch na tayo, I believe. If I'm not mistaken. Let me check right quick. Come on now. Yep, mag lunch na tayo. I got it right. All right, cool. So I was saying I was gonna get that, and I got it. Got you. And as always, for all my people that are coming from Russia, I will say privyet to you. Kakdela, spasibo for coming by and taking a look at my stuff real quick. So if you guys are ready to go, let's hop in and see what we have for this game. So we got D4, D5, C4. You know, this is getting into like positions that you've seen in the past, but we do have pawn takes C4. So we are now in the Queen's Gambit accepted. So it's a whole completely different situation. You know, when you already have kind of like the setup going on, this is just simply like a captures, you know, kind of in the opening that you're in. But this kind of sets it apart because there's a lot of like kind of like pawn play going on over here sometimes, you know, with somebody really trying to hold on to a pawn. They might play B5, C6 or A6, something like that. But it does get very, very hard to, you know, hold on to this pawn. And at the end of the day, only way you can really hang on to the pawn is if white plays too passively and they pretty much allow you to set up, you know, a nice like A6, B5, C6, bishop to B7 type situation, you know, and hold on to your pawn. But we do see knight coming to F3. We see knight to F6. We got E3, you know, just clear. We're going to be capturing this pawn. And like I said, man, when you get to these levels of the game, you know, black is not worried about, you know, holding on to that pawn because you are going to overextend yourself normally. So we got E6, bishop takes C4, we see A6, castles, we have C5. You guys knew it was coming. I know you guys over there like, yeah, C5. Like, exactly. You guys knew it. We got A4. You know, we don't want to see any B5 situations coming because B5 can be very annoying because it can be followed by C4. And you just have like a crazy clamp on this side. So A4 perfectly prevents all that from going on. We see knight to C6. We see queen to E2, which kind of seems like it might give away a pawn. But after pawn does take on D4, we do see rook to D1. So that's perfectly pinning the pawn. So now we don't have to worry about, you know, any pawn losses. We see bishop to E7. We see pawn takes D4. Castles by white. Or castles by black. We see knight to C3. We got knight to B4. We see knight to E5. And in these type of situations, when you have like a queen's pawn situation, you know, knight to E5 is going to be a very, very common move that's played. It's just a really, really beautiful square for the knight to go to, you know, coming into a middle game and stuff like that. So we see bishop to D7, bishop comes to G5. So both players are pretty much done everything they needed to do. You know, they're castled, you know, they got their pieces out there going. You know, they're all on pretty good squares, you know, so it's pretty even, you know, for either side. We see bishop coming to C6. And Dubov says, you know, I can't handle that, man. So let me go ahead and take on C6. We see pawn taking C6, and then we do see A5. Now, the thing about pushing the A5, a lot of the times, you know, you have a queen on D2. You have like a bishop here on F4. And you're planning to go like knight to A4 to knight to B6. And it can get really, really annoying for this rook. Because now with the knight here on B6... and the bishop on F4, there's really not a lot of squares that this rook can go to. So sometimes the rook has to kind of drop down to A7, which is kind of, I mean, it's just a little bit weird for the rook. Because you do want it to be like on an open file. You don't want it to be just kind of like pinned in the corner over there. So we do see queen over to C7. We see bishop down to H4. Now, you know, definitely we have some possibilities of dropping bishop back to G3 and just wrecking all of this, you know, queen C7 stuff. And then so we do see rook F to D8, and this is the novelty of the game. And so we do see the knights coming to A4. But in this particular situation, it does allow the pawn to be captured on a5. It is kind of a risky pawn. I mean, because when you look at it, I mean, you just place your queen opposite this rook. So, you know, you have some discoveries possibly coming up. So we have reached a point in the game that if you do want to go ahead and stop the video and try and guess what Daniil Dubov plays in this position, go ahead and do so now. Okay, cool. So it's one of those situations where, you know, it's kind of like, I guess I would say when you play like a Sicilian as white, you know, there usually is a pawn on e6, and there can be a lot of like knight taking and bishop taking and stuff like that possible in the positions and stuff like that. And it is kind of somewhat possible in the position now. So we do see Dubov play bishop takes e6. Now, usually when you are playing Sicilians as white, and you do have the opportunity to sack on e6 with a knight or a bishop, it's usually better for white. This is actually a situation where this is not a completely sound sacrifice, but it can be very complicated for like a human to like see this move, and they're going to be thinking, man, did I miss something? Like, did I leave myself open for some type of tactic? Because like I said, I mean, the computer gives black maybe about a pawn's worth of an advantage. So, I mean, it is somewhat of a sound sacrifice. And that's the thing about sacrifices. A lot, like, sometimes sacrifices aren't sound. You guys saw the sacrifice I made in my game. It wasn't sound, but we're playing against a human person. And sometimes humans cannot handle certain sacrifices well, and then they end up getting into a bad position. So that's kind of like, you know, that's kind of like tall-esque, I guess I would call this type of sacrifice. You know, it's like a tall-esque, you know, sacrifice. So we see pawn takes e6, queen takes e6 with check. We see king over to f8. Of course, you can't play king to h8 in this position because you would be dropping the bishop for free. So, you know, white would just be gaining a pawn in the scenario. We do see knight to c5, so this is where the discovery comes up. We didn't really have anywhere else that we can move the knight, you know, like with a nice tempo. So we do see queen coming back to c7. Now, if we back up just one move, there was actually a really, really crazy variation that the computer gave in this particular position, and I'll show you the idea behind it when we get towards the end. But it was actually rook takes d4, and this is like a really, really cute move because you know, this is really undermining, you know, the protection of this knight. So now the knight is like really on pre. So we see knight to d7 with check, rook takes d7, queen takes d7, knight takes d7, bishop takes e7, and then you have king takes e7 and rook takes a5. Now, you are up a pawn as white, but you are down a piece, but you do have double rooks. And this is what the computer is saying black had the ability to do, and white pretty much had to play this way to like literally hold on. Anything else was just completely losing. And basically, the entire reason behind the ability to take on d4 with the rook is the fact that you absolutely cannot take back because you are looking at back rank mate. You know, after this, and then the pieces just get thrown in the way. And you guys have seen back rank mates where it's like literally all the pieces have to get thrown away. And so it was really interesting, like, to see rook takes d4. Like, man, I mean, I really kind of thought it was like not playable. It didn't occur to me at all. And the computer was like, yeah, this one. I was like, let me look into this one and see what's up. This is pretty nice. So this is definitely something that Wesley So had that, you know, I'm sure he probably calculated it, but maybe he found something wrong with it, you know, like going down the line and stuff, and he went and decided not to go into it. So like I said, we do see queen to c7. We see bishop takes f6. We see pawn takes f6, rook over to a3. So, you know, like, we're dreaming of a rook to g3, rook to g8, just checkmate, let's shake hands and go home type scenario, which, you know, Wesley So is like, dude, I'm better than that. Like, we're not doing that. So we see queen to c8. Black really wants to trade queens in this situation because they are up material. So, you know, of course, Dubov says, nah, we're not doing that. Like, we're not trading, bro. I'm down material. It's not going to be good for me. So we do see queen to f5. We see knight over to e6 with check. We see king to f7. Knight takes d8 with check. Rook takes d8 with check. And then we see queen down to e2. We see bishop back to f8. Get this real quick. Okay. And then we see rook to f3. We have queen down to c2. We see rook to d2. And then we have queen to b1 with check. Rook down to d1 with check. Queen back to c2. We see rook to d2 with check. Queen back down to b1 with check. We see rook to d1. And then we see queen to c2. and it is in this position that the players have drawn by threefold repetition. When you get into this position, like if you don't play rook takes d4, you pretty much get into a position that's like fairly equal. And even if you were to do something, let's say, for example, after rook to d2 in this position, instead of repeating, if you did something like retreat to g6 with the queen, you're still going to be getting harassed. And so it's not going to be like the clearest scenario. Like it's still going to be fairly even. You would see rook to g3, queen coming down to f5, rook to f3, queen to g5. And I mean, you know, maybe like rook down to d1 or something like that here. Like, you know, you're still kind of, you know, getting messed with a little bit, you know. So, you know, you definitely, you know, it's not clear. It's not really just like winning, you know, that advantageous for either side. So, you know, it's pretty much going to end up probably being the same thing. So that was that game. Like I said, I think it would have been cool, you know, to see rook takes d4. I think it would have been, you know, it would have been a very interesting game. It definitely would have been very dynamic, I think so. But anyway, for all of my people in the Philippines, let me get these good mornings. I just did them a second ago and I like blew through them like crazy faster than them before. So let me see how I'm looking like. So maayong buntag, mayad na agahan, nainbag na biga, masentos ya kabason, marhe na aga, buenos dias, maayong aga, mapia na uma, kapian kapuno dios, mayap a abak, mayad na aga, mapia agay, mapia kapapita, may big abukla, marja may not, or marja na buntag, marya may not. I didn't get stuck here a second ago. Maupe Naaga, Kasanyangan CLOB, and Salam, Assalamu Alaikum, merci to you. I think I got them all correctly. Hopefully I didn't leave anything out. I was noticing every now and then I would like miss, you know, a phrase or whatever, but I think I'm good. So mag lunch na tayo. If you guys see this in the afternoon, magandang apon. And maraming salamat po aking makaibigan. And I'll see y'all next time.